my computer.
We can hear you, you can hear us. I would ignore that message if it's not blocking the vision of your screen. You should be fine. All right.
David, I think she wants to make sure that she can hear Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Yeah. So Ray, I'd be
last month.
I'm not quite sure what that message means, so I'd hate for her to hit it and we lose her. Is that her audio direction? Yeah. Ray, do you know?
No, ask Marion.
Repeat that, Mrs. Harper. Repeat the message.
Recording is on now, and then it says original sound for musicians off.
It's fine. It's fine.
Leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marion says leave it alone. You're fine. Okay. All right, so we are recording. Again, good morning. Welcome to our annual general membership meeting of the Minnesota branch of ASALH. And we will start our Lift Every Voice and Sing. But first, I wanted to take a few moments and let us all give a minute of silence in respect the passing of our friend and first Vice President, Gary Giscombe. So let's do that now, and then I'll start Lift Every Voice and Sing. Thank you all. I gotta share my screen.
Not hearing it.
I do not hear.
I'm not hearing either. Ray speaking.
Yeah. Speaker out.
David, you may need to double check that when you shared screen, you check the box that said share computer sound. This is Unita speaking.
So it did. Closer. Yeah. It's almost on. Wait just a second. Sorry.
I do not hear anything.
We're trying to fix it, Mrs. Harper.
Thank you.
Start over.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Easier.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring.
Is that better?
With the harmonies of liberty, let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Excellent. From the Berkeley School of Music.
That was worth the wait.
Good. We're glad. All right. Stop sharing. Back to here. Gotta get back, man. Can you help me, Marion?
Okay.
Just a moment. I just shortened the window.
Okay. The screen there.
Is it here? Is it?
Yeah.
Trying to get back to the full screen to see you all. We're close.
Almost there. Which one
Yes,
did you get?
it's the four.
We see you though, David.
Well, that's most important, I suppose. Let's go ahead and let's proceed while Marion gets us out of the share
there you
mode.
go.
There we go. All right. Again, good morning. And we always appreciate your patience with my inept Zoom skills after all these, 3 years now. You'd think I'd get this down. Let's begin with the moment in history. Harold Young has agreed to fill in for a plan that Gary had, which we've now obviously gladly changed. So Harold, if you would, I think we have made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen. And Harold's going to do a presentation from Richard Rothstein's Color of Law.
Okay, hello, good morning. I have a brief slide presentation of the highlights of the book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. In full disclosure, to add a little intrigue here, I worked at HUD for 32 years, and the last 9 years I headed the HUD office in Maryland. So as you hear me go through these slides, and just wonder, well, where was Harold? What was he doing? So, at any rate, can we all see the book cover?
We're still seeing you, Harold. Have you share your screen?
The green,
So at the bottom of, if you've got a PC, it's the share screen button.
How
There
about
you go.
now?
yeah.
There you go.
Everyone sees it? Okay. So
Harold, you get
here's,
readings from henceforth.
okay, so the subtitle, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America. Rothstein sets out at the beginning of the book to dispel the myth that housing segregation happened by accident or individual prejudices or private acts. No, he made it clear that it did not happen by de facto circumstances. Rothstein says the federal, state, local governments intentionally created segregation by the laws that kept Blacks segregated from whites, de jure segregation. Aided and abetted by the federal government, the state and local governments. Let's go back to the Great Depression during the 1930s, when there was a need for a new approach for housing, men and women protesting higher wages and lower rents. Many banks failed, causing drastic decreases in home loans. Back then, you could only get a mortgage for 3 to 5 years, and then you had to refinance. Many homes were foreclosed, causing the housing market to plummet. And Rothstein talks about the caste system. We have created a caste system in this country with African Americans being exploited and kept geographically separate by racially explicit government policies. And here are the 6 pillars of de jure segregation. Most of you are probably very familiar with them. Exclusionary zoning, restrictive covenants and deeds and land. Black neighborhoods were redlined as high risk, and Blacks were excluded from suburban subdivisions, intentional segregation of public housing, urban renewal, interstate highways bulldozed through Black neighborhoods. And lastly, subprime mortgage loans and predatory lending practices.
Thank you.
In 1910, for example, there was a Baltimore City ordinance that prohibited African Americans from buying homes blocks where whites were a majority. Had a prominent attorney there, Ashby Hawkins, wanted to buy a property on the east side of McCullough. It was denied. He later fought it and was able to make the purchase. In 1934, the Housing Act was created that created the Federal Housing Administration, commonly known as FHA. Now, FHA insured home mortgages could go up to 30 years with regular monthly payments. Down payment is low as 3.5%. And of course, there was a 1.7% for the mortgage interest premiums in case of default. If the homeowner defaulted on the loan, FHA will take the loan back, relieving the bank of the bad debt, and then resell the property. But the light did not shine on all families. Some families were intentionally kept in the dark through a system of deed restrictions written into the FHA underwriting manual. Listen, hereafter, no part of said property or any portion thereof shall be occupied by any person not of the Caucasian race. This is in the handbook. It being intended hereby to restrict the use of said property against occupancy as owners or tenants of any portion of said property for the resident or other purposes by people of the Negro or Mongolian race. So Blacks are out. And there was a Supreme Court case in 1926, Corrigan v. Buckley, basically said that the contract or the law that prohibit Blacks from purchasing property was good law. And then in 1948, Shelley v. Kramer, the U.S. Supreme Court said that the enforcement of these restrictive covenants violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. But guess what? The practice continued in many states. Redlining. As early as 1935, FHA had written in its underwriting manual, if a neighborhood is to retain stability, it is necessary that property shall continue to be occupied by the same social and racial classes. A change in social or racial occupancy generally leads to instability and reduced property values. Here's a map that was created essentially in February and the federal government in 1937 of Baltimore City. The green areas are the more acceptable areas. The blue areas are acceptable. The yellow areas are where low-income white families lived. And in the red areas were not acceptable, and loans could not and were not made in the Black community. Washington, D.C. Artist rendition. What housing segregation means to the capital's Negro. No property in a white section should ever be sold, rented, advertised, or offered to colored people. The segregation of the Negro has little hope, leaving his racial enclosures. They were out of the housing market as well. In 1946, the Levitt Company began building 17,000 housing units in Hempstead, Long Island, New York. This would be the largest housing development in the country at the time. This is a typical picture of the housing stock there in the Levittown development. And look again what FHA wrote as a condition that it financed the Levittown community. The FHA financed the Levittown on the condition that it be all white with no foreseeable change in its racial composition. Urban renewal or Negro removal. The Housing Act of 1949, the federal slum clearance activities, policies destroyed African-American neighborhoods, businesses, and cultural districts, making way for downtown business districts so white commuters, shoppers, and business elites would not have to be exposed to Black people. Here in Overtown, Sarasota, once a thriving residential community, and Sarasota's first Black community was lost through urban renewal, has now been designated as a National Register Historic District. And this marker here, the first Black community, is the only remnant of that Black people ever lived there. It's now gentrified as the Rosemary District. Public housing, segregated from the beginning. The first public housing built in the country was in 1935. The Techwood Homes was built in Atlanta, destroyed a low-income integrated community, and built public housing for whites only in Atlanta, 1935. This is a picture of Techwood public housing. Subprime mortgage loans. A subprime mortgage is a housing loan that the borrowers are granted, even with impaired credit, or often they had no credit whatsoever. So on one hand, you had redlining that no loans were made into Black communities. And in this instance, they said, we can make some money by making fraudulent loans in the Black community. Look at the percentage of subprime lenders refinance originations in 1998. The blue represent the Black neighborhoods. Look how many neighborhoods in the Atlanta metropolitan, about 32% of the poor fraudulent predatory loans were made to Black families. And in Baltimore, 48%, Boston, 18%, and 52% in Chicago. Buyers were lured to buy these mortgages. The interest rate floated, and after 3 to 6 months, the interest rate would skyrocket, make it impossible for people to make loans, to pay their loans, resulting in massive foreclosures. And there had to be a crooked appraiser to inflate the property value. The result was that the buyer could not refinance the loan or sell the property because of these artificially inflated home values. According to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, it said lenders made loans to borrowers with poor credit, no assets, and at times no income. They were sending agents to Black churches, recruiting Blacks to get into this predatory scheme. The real causes of the housing and financial crisis in 2008 were predatory private mortgage loans. And guess who was left holding the bag? Many Black homeowners. So in 2012, the United States filed a lawsuit against Wells Fargo. In 2016, there was a settlement. And the settlement said that Wells Fargo had to pay $1.2 billion for the loss of the FHA insurance fund. Most of the funds of most of the $1.2 billion came to replenish the fund. And some of the money was used to write down the mortgages of some of the homeowners that found themselves in this predatory scheme. Still, many homeowners throughout the country lost their home. And so there it is. The predatory scheme. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Harold, very much. Appreciate you, especially since you were not scheduled to do this today and you happen to have this excellent material ready for us. Some of you might know that. Are there any questions? Let's just take a couple of minutes. Harold is with us, and I know some of us have read this material. Some of us are familiar with the issues. You can spotlight him if you can. So, are there any questions? Don't see any in the chat. Again, thanks, Harold. Last Saturday, I believe it is, there was a forum at the First Congregational Church, hosted by a number of churches, Light of the World First Congregational, I believe the Church of the Palms, and it was a racial wealth gap simulation put on by folks from Bread for the World, touching on many of the same issues that Rothstein covers in his book, but what they do very, very effectively is through a series of tabletop exercises, obviously with Black and white participants, Black folks assuming the role of white folks assuming the role of Blacks, and then the simulation takes you through a series of questions that relate to all aspects of housing, education. And by the end of the simulation, it's quite clear the basis of these disparities are the very laws that Harold has just been talking to us about. So it's a very effective. We're going to try to find an opportunity to share that more broadly with our Asala community, but the broader community, because they need to understand it.
Has her hand up.
Please, who's questioning?
Eula's.
Yes, please go ahead if you got a question.
Good morning, Eula Bacon. I grew up in Sarasota, and I was on the planning board for the city when that started to take displace Overtown. Any suggestions on how we stop that, or is there any other areas in the state that we should be trying to help people prevent that. I saw it happen in St. Pete with the stadium. And that's just my concern. I had one little vote, but it's a massive process. And that started 20 plus years ago. It took some time. But what they had planned, it all came to reality. It just took a little while for them to take over time.
Thank you, Eula. Mrs. Harper, and then I'll try to address Ms. Baker's question. Ms. Harper?
I think that one of the jobs that we have, I know that we have tried to educate young people today. And I hope that we will continue to let young people know what we have had to put up with and let them know about the conspiracy really of the federal government, these handbooks and how all of this did take place, so that they can really watch for this when they go out to buy homes, and they can look into. And today there are so many more trained lawyers than there were when I came along as a young person. And I think that one of the things that Asala can take on is recruiting the young lawyers and other lawyers and members of our group to educate young people today who are in the home ownership, who are looking to buy homes, so that they can look into the laws and see to it that they are not so described as we saw today. Because I lived through all of this.
Thank you, Ms. Harper. Eula, there is a group of Sarasotans, and I think some folks from Manatee, who have formed a discussion group at this point involving our organization and many of the other organizations you'd recognize, who are looking at how the Black community can work together more effectively to not just address housing issues, but the whole range of disparities that exist across our community. So it's way too early to make any announcements, but I will tell you that we've been engaged in those conversations for at least 6 months. We now have a Black mayor. Kyle Batty was sworn in as mayor, one of the commissioners, and the city manager, whose name immediately escapes me, I think you all know, is also African-American, and we've met with both of them. And so stay tuned. Our branch will stay engaged. And as always, we need more of our branch members if they're interested in this issue. Our board is obviously a small one, and we've got a host of other responsibilities. But if you'd like to get engaged in this particular conversation, just let me know. We can get you plugged in. Any other questions? Marcia, I think you're trying to ask a question, but you're muted.
Her name is Debbie Trice. Debbie Trice.
Yeah, Debbie Trice is a new commissioner, but Kyle Batty is the also a commissioner, and Debbie might be county, or is she city? I think they're both city, probably. Both city. Okay. Thanks, Marcia. Anything else? Harold, again, thank you so much. Jim's got a comment, and I see John Gibbs's name as well. So Jim, please. Saw him on here.
Well, I put my comment in the chat.
Oh, let me read that to the folks. I recommend that each Florida branch undertake a study of gentrification in their area. Comprehensive report should be developed and widely circulated throughout the state. And Jim's referring, I think, to the Florida Coalition of Branches, and we do work closely together, meet now twice monthly, since as you'll hear in a moment, the annual meeting and convention will be in Jacksonville next year. Thanks, Jim. John, you had a comment or a question?
The question was, are you addressing the issue of steering both by banks and the real estate community?
Good question, and I don't think the issue can be addressed without addressing steering. And I think if Harold had more time, he'd probably go into that as a former HUD official tell you about his experience with the banks, but good questions, and stay tuned. We can't do much more of this today, but this is on our agenda, and I said the agenda of some other pretty influential folks in the community.
Thank
If I
you.
could if I could make one comment about real
Thanks,
estate.
Harold. Please.
And this is quick. If you want to sell your house, and if you have a lot of black art on the walls, I'm looking at certain people, then oftentimes you'll find that the realtor, to make the property marketable, asks you to remove it. So something is wrong with the vision of the broader community. They don't want to see black art or live in a house that black families lived in. So as a marketing strategy, they will ask you to remove your art or limit the number of black art pieces. Now, grapple with that one. That's real today.
Yes.
Well, one other suggestion.
Yes, Jeff.
Because we've moved 8 times, all right? It's called denegrification, all right? It's not just art, okay? It's personal pictures, etc. But what you need to do is to check even the top realtors to see what happens. And very honestly, you can use one of your white colleagues as a partner in this. And you can find a real difference in the estimates you get and the kind of offers you get. These are real dollars. You need to be aggressive. It's my statement.
Amen.
Thanks, John. I did some fair housing litigation years ago when I practiced in Chicago, and we would send testers into western suburbs of Chicago, black couples, white couples, and you know the outcome. We actually used the results of one of those testing experiences in a federal lawsuit, and got black folks in a house in a part of Chicago they never had black folks before. So still a lot of work to do in this area, people. And again, we're involved and invite you to join us. But let's move to the rest of our meeting. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to go through my report as quickly as I can. You all hopefully saw our October 22nd meeting minutes attached to the meeting materials. Thank you all for agreeing to move to the third Saturday as opposed to the fourth because of the Thanksgiving holidays. We appreciate your flexibility. Hopefully you've seen those minutes. If there are no questions or additions at this point, those will be received subject to any additional questions that might come later. Let's see here. I'm going to invite Corrine Richardson to the podium. You know, we have for the past 2 meetings reviewed the slate for the 2023, 2024. And according to our bylaws, today is voting day. So Ms. Richardson, if you would.
Good morning, everyone. As you know, I'm Corrine Richardson. I never go too far away. If you want me to do,
Just bring the motion. Yeah.
you've had the opportunity to review the slate of officers for the 2023 and 2024 season or the term. Are there any nominations from the floor? Hearing none. Mr. President, I move that one vote be cast for the entire slate of nominees for the 2023-24 term.
Is there a second to the motion? Second from the floor here. And the secretaries will record that. Any questions? Seeing none. It's been moved and seconded that and thanks to our committee, nominations committee, Corrine and her committee for the wonderful work they've done. It's been moved and seconded that the 2023-24 slate be elected. All in favor indicate with a show of hands, both here and on Zoom. Hear a voice from the folks off video, and anyone in opposition to this slate, please indicate now. Seeing none, slate is elected unanimously, and thank you all. So let's move on then to the rest of our meeting. Keep track here. I'm going to share my screen again, maybe with Marion's help. And want to show you, I guess I need to open it first, huh? Let's see, the annual meeting, is that the one? Here we go. Share. So I want to share just some slides from our 107th annual meeting and conference in Montgomery. I had hoped to have this a month or so ago, but time wouldn't allow. There were, I think, 14 of our branch members in attendance at the conference, and I think we were well represented. We had a marvelous time. Some of us went a little early and did some sightseeing. And so let me just share. Do I need to put this in? I think, what's it called? I'll just, I just use it from here. It'll be easier to get in and out of. So the theme, obviously, for this year was Black Health and Wellness. Last year, you recall, the representation, identity, and diversity theme. The theme for 2023 will be Black resistance. And again, I just encourage all of our members, and I know you get lots of ASALA mail, both from us and from National, but I wanted to highlight the luncheons are always spectacular events at these, and in this series, Brian Stevenson, Jarvis Givens, and Bob Stanton were our keynoters. You can imagine how great Stevenson was. We've all seen him on TV. Maybe you've seen him live. He was as good as I've ever seen him. Spoke for about an hour, no notes, and he was obviously well received. Jarvis Givens is a brilliant young scholar, not a new scholar, but has written a book called Fugitive Pedagogy on Carter G. Woodson. And for any of you educators, any of you historians of Woodson, it's a wonderful work. And he really gives a radical historical lens to all of Woodson's life, and particularly his work for ASALA. And Bob Stanton is a fixture in the National Park Service. And at all of these conferences, the National Park Service is present in more ways than you can imagine. Their storytellers are among the finest in the world, and perhaps the best presentation I saw in one of the small breakouts was by a Park Service gentleman who is in charge of the renovation of the Woodson home. And the passion that this gentleman displayed and the response he got in exchange was 30 people in the room, because some of these sessions are, as you can imagine, small, some are very large. So all credit due to Mr. Stanton, who's a lifelong, I think Jim knows him personally, and some of you may know him, but he was also well received during his reception. For me, one of the highlights was a presidential session. This is former President Higginbotham and Fred Gray. I hope everybody here knows Fred Gray, knows the legend of Fred Gray and the work that he did on behalf of our people, still doing. And I think he is approaching 90 and still wearing them red socks, you'll know. He was phenomenal, and he was joined on the panel. So these are photos that I gathered from our friends, the Ruffins and the Crumps and the Taylors and Bill Woodson and whoever else we could get. Tried to get some from the national photographer and didn't, but there are two or three people to the Caucasian gentleman's left. He and another gentleman have written a book on the civil rights movement, and Justice Denied. So they're both lawyers. And obviously I bought it, got signatures, and have got to get to it on my list of books. But Gray was phenomenal. If you go to these and don't take advantage of these sessions, you're missing the whole point, because there's a business meeting invariably, but the heart of these conferences, the fun time you have with other ASALH members from around the country, but also the education, the engagement opportunities of meeting people like Fred Gray. Our esteemed former president, you'll see standing with the current Dr. Delaney, was a recipient of the Living Legacy Award. And it was Saturday evening, I think, sort of the final dinner. And got some shots here. These are the group on the podium. There is Dr. Sheffield at lunch, and Jim is showing, you'll see in his hands, the lovely award he received. And you'll see Bill Woodson along with the Sheffield stewards. Bill did a phenomenal breakout panel discussion. Was supposed to have been done with the chief of police in Sarasota and one of his officers, and Trevor Harvey, the NAACP president. Interruptus Ian, Bill was the only one that made it, and the ASALH folks were ready to cancel the session, and Bill said, I can do it by myself. So he handled this by himself, and he handled it beautifully. He and this quartet, the chief of police and Trevor and I can't remember the other officer's name, are engaged in an ongoing process, of training new officers in, let's call it diversity sensitivity, but they've got several projects related to this. The core of this content comes from Bill's doctoral thesis. And so we are so fortunate to have Bill in our branch, in our community, recently retired from New College and about to be recruited by us to get much more busy in our branch. And I hope you're on this Zoom and you heard that. Again, I said, this is Hazel Gillis, my wife and I. Hazel is the president of the Jacksonville branch, and she's a gem. Been a stalwart, a ASALH member much longer than I, and I wanted to get many more of these kinds of casual photos, and just didn't, I was engaged in learning and attending sessions, but it was a fun time. And this is actually, the background is the marketplace. These things always have marketplaces and all kinds of great things to buy. See our friend Gene Crump with Sylvia Cyrus. Gene and Paul volunteered for most of their time, and I'll give them special kudos. They manned one of the toughest desks in the conference, getting folks registered and answering interminable questions about why isn't this in my packet. They did a phenomenal job, and you see Paul and his lovely wife with some of the signage at the meeting. I did not go to the session with this gentleman. You see Dr. Ray Taylor. I'm told it was one of the best sessions. Can somebody tell me just very briefly? I know you guys were there. Who is this man?
Yes, Wesley. He played with James Brown. I'm a member of James Brown Band, and also played with Buckadeli. He was a phenomenal. It was a phenomenal session because we got a chance to listen to some of the James Brown's most popular music, and we interacted, and it was really fantastic. Of course, I got his signature with this book, and it was something to really remember. So that's got a little synopsis.
Excellent.
It was fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. They came out of that session, they were rocking. I was across the hall doing some serious engagement in our history, and they came out popping their fingers, and I said, okay, y'all left me out. So we also got a chance to see Montgomery, and many of you have been in Montgomery, so I'm going to move right. This is the visitor center, Claudette Colvin mural, and that's the crew that we hung out with for our time there. I know you know all those folks. You see these markers everywhere around Montgomery and Selma, and I know they're not new, and one of those are going to be posted here in Sarasota shortly. The Edmund Pettus Bridge, you recognize that. The entry to the National Memorial. Hopefully you all have been there. Hopefully it's on your plan. If you've not, you should know that the Legacy Museum has been rebuilt. If not from the ground, it is 3 times the wonderful artifact that it was when we were there several years ago. Don't have enough time to tell you all that touched in all of us. So Brian Stevenson and his folks are amazing. If you've not again seen the memorial, you wouldn't recognize these are ground level pillars that you see in the background here hanging. And so for each of those memorials to lynching victims, these markers are also displayed all around the yard. This is the marker from Manatee County, Florida. The lynching in Selma is from the EJI, just an idea of what the marker that we're going to post here in Sarasota will look like. I believe this was inside the Legacy Museum, and some of our friends displayed amongst the statuary there. We did get a chance to go to Tuskegee. Unfortunately, most of the school was closed and the airfield was closed for renovations, but we'd been there before and it was wonderful. Let me close with a save the date. I mentioned the Jacksonville meeting and conference, September 2024. This is before Montgomery, the last virtual conference was hosted by the Florida Coalition. This will be a Florida convention. We will be talking a great deal about this over the next few months. It will be a wonderful, I've never been to Jacksonville, but I'm told the facilities are wonderful there. They did a conference, I think in 2013, Jim would recall, and I heard it was a huge success. So we will be forming an ad hoc committee because again, there's a lot of work to be done, both with national in their planning, but also with the Florida Coalition of branches, an ad hoc committee from our branch to work again with the other 5 branches in Florida to make this 2023 conference a success. So if you are interested in joining that committee, again, I invite you to, you know my number. If I don't hear from you, I'll be reaching out and inviting you to join this committee. So that's our report. A couple of other items. Let me close this, stop sharing. Hopefully we'll do it. All right. Any questions on any of that? That was just a little bit of background. It was a wonderful experience. I know all of us have been to various conferences and conventions for the groups that we're members of. As an ASALH member, I encourage you, if you've never been to one, please take that opportunity in the upcoming year to do that at Jacksonville.
David.
Yes.
Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Jacksonville, did you say that's live and in color, or is that online?
No, that's going to be, the Montgomery was live and in color, as you say, in person. There was a virtual option. There'll be a virtual option for Jacksonville, but we're going to do everything we can to get as many folks there in person as possible. So thanks, Paul.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes. Mike Waddell has yes, Mike.
Black History Month presenter in December, Hollywood Playwright from Washington was there exactly the same time you were. I'm sorry I couldn't connect you, but she was carrying soil from lynching sites in Washington for the Legacy Museum, a really sacred work to be kept there.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Mike. As you know, the Remembrance Project, which is the overarching EJI project, involves a marker, a soil collection, and again, for those of you who've been there, you know, in the I believe it's in the Legacy Museum. There's a wall of these jars containing the earth over which our ancestors were lynched or terrorized. Third component, and I'm glad Mike mentioned this, is an essay contest. You all hopefully know that we're working on our Remembrance Project here. I'll say more about the marker placement and at the end of the meeting. The essay contest, you've seen it publicized in our newsletter, and we're looking for high school students to compete for this $5,000 scholarship prize. And that I think runs through mid-January, but don't quote me on that. Go to the actual. Yes, Corinne, please.
I'm Fred Gray here. He has been here.
Oh.
Sarasota. Excellent.
I hope you heard Corinne was saying Fred Gray has been to Minnesota Asala, and it's just a giant in the law, in civil rights work, and in our hearts. I did mention the marker. I think I've gotten to the end. So we have signed a memorandum of understanding between those involved, the organizations involved in the Community Remembrance Project, along with the Unitarian Universalist Church. The marker project is now on its way. We have to obviously have it crafted and brought here, and there will be a community celebration for its hosting on the property of the Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm actually going to be speaking at their church service tomorrow morning, bringing thanks from our Remembrance Project team to their board and to their church for their courage in doing what our county and city governments in both Manatee and Sarasota would not do. And so invite you all to join us tomorrow at 10:30 at the Unitarian Universalist Church. That's my report. Are there any questions before we move to our next report, which I believe is Alan. Alan, let me share. Let me get your treasurer's report open. And I did it again, Marion. I hit the report before I shared. There we go.
You got it.
I don't know if I got it, but let's see. I ain't going that far. All right, Alan. Can everybody see that? Alan, you muted?
No, I'm here. I'm just waiting for the screen. The screen is here. I just want to highlight a few pertinent numbers from this report. And those are 4173, 5500, 1032, and 2742. And that will explain most of what we have done for the past couple of months. The 4170
or expenditures, Alan, I'm sorry.
They're both expenditures and receipts.
Okay.
So taking 4173 from receipts and the balance of the numbers I mentioned, the 5500, 1032, and 2742 come from expenditures. These four numbers explain most of what we did for the month of October. The 4173 is really our receipts from the Day of Giving, Black Day of Giving back in August. The foundation for the county takes a month or two to send us the money. We just got this money that we earned in August during the month of October of 4173. The 5500 is particularly interesting. That's the tuition for the last 4 students that we're paying tuition for. And we happen to have had the misfortune or good fortune of mailing it the day before the hurricane. And I'm pleased to say all the money's reached the schools, and all the schools, like schools always do, cash the checks promptly. The 1032 are just community initiatives such as our involvement in the Newtown project. And the 2742 is the expenditure we have for the welcome back reception that we had in October at the Sarasota Museum. The bulk of those four numbers account for the bottom line of negative 5095. Any questions on the profit and loss statement? Okay, pretty straightforward. If we could look at the balance sheet for a couple of minutes. Are we able to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Something
Good.
else is-
Balance sheet, I want to focus on the fund balances to talk about the diversity of the maturity of our funding sources, how that prepares us for the future. And I want to highlight a couple of numbers here. The endowment of 20,000, scholarship funds of 38,000, the 360 plan of 20,218. Any organization preparing for the future has to have three sets of cash flows, one short-term, one medium-term, and one long-term. So the endowment is 20,000. That's money for us. Long-term is 5 years or more before we actually touch it. Scholarship is basically something we access in the next year or so. And the medium of 360 or 20,000 is the time period between 1 year and about 5 years. So we're prepared for the next 5 years to fund important events such as our scholarship program. And that's my overview and that's my report. Any questions?
Any questions for Alan? Thanks, Alan. I'm going to stop sharing. All right. Any questions for our treasurer? Seeing none. Thank you, Alan. Your report will be received, subject to any later corrections or additions, which we'll share with the membership. Is Rita on, our membership chair? Didn't see her this morning, but I can't see everybody. Good morning, Rita.
Good morning. How is everyone? Hope everyone is fine in this nice, cool weather. Our membership campaign is still running through the end of, actually through December 15th. Hopefully, all of our members are taking time to go on and renew. We're thankful for the ones who have renewed. As you may know, the deadline to renew at the current rate is December 15th. After that, it'll go up to the increased rate that the national has imposed. So we're probably about halfway goal. We have a goal of about 400 members, so we're about halfway there. So hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, our members will go ahead on and renew. Look forward to seeing everyone at our holiday event on December 3rd. And is there any questions for your membership or is getting on our portal renewing?
Seeing none, Rita, thank you. And again, the key date for those who want to utilize the grace period before the dues increase takes effect. Get your dues in by December 15th. That's correct. Right, Rita?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Rita. Let's hear from Marion, our corresponding secretary.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to tell you that we've sold 215 tickets for the holiday breakfast. We have 280 seats, so please get your tickets in. The deadline has been extended to the 28th, and then it will be closed. So for those who have mailed them in, David picked up the mail. I'll go through those, and then the 28th will be it. And we'll be ready to serve you at the breakfast, and we'll have the WBTT guest there to sing to you, and we'll have a wonderful time. I'll see you there. Thank you.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
I tried to, and it was after the deadline this morning, to use the electronic link, and it said it wasn't available. Are you going to reopen it then, since it's been extended?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Inquired about the breakfast on yesterday.
Yeah.
And they were trying to buy a ticket, so they can go now on and buy.
It's being reopened. I would wait until Monday
Monday.
and then it will be open again. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Marianne. I don't see Fred on this morning. Did see him last week at Gary's Services, and he looked well. We had a chance to talk, but so let's move then to our committee reports. I know that Linda was out or traveling today. Is Jean on? All right. Well, I can report for the Education Committee that we had another excellent Beyond Black History Month session this past Thursday. It was, as I think you saw, published the portions of the Baldwin debate. What's the writer's name? Blanking. Buckley, the Buckley Baldwin debate. So it's recorded. It's on our website, so I'd encourage all of you to go to it. The Education Committee is promoting the essay contest that I referenced earlier. Please, if you know of any high school students, let us get connected with them so they can participate in this interesting opportunity.
David?
Yes.
There are 2 sessions for December 1st and December 15th.
Marion just reminds me, because of technical glitches in our October Beyond Black History Month, Edna Sherrell's presentation that was to have been done in October will be done December 1st. And she's going to be taking us on a journey to the motherland, the journey that she took several months ago. So please, third Thursday, 4 o'clock on the 1st, and then there'll be a second Beyond Black History Month.
Mike Waddell.
Mike Waddell's, and that also in December.
On the 15th.
On the 15th. And Mike, you're going to be talking or speaking about?
It'll be Marcia, who I mentioned, and myself.
Okay.
And it's about the first Lincoln Memorial that was built really by Black Americans shortly after Lincoln's assassination.
The kneeling freedmen.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And the kneeling gentleman with them.
Excellent. Excellent. That'll be good. Thank you all. Harriet is going to try to join us. She is in Atlanta preparing for her daughter's wedding. But she tells me that the scholarship committee has been meeting and are getting prepared for the campaign to come. So we'll hear more from Harriet at and I should use this moment to mention we will not meet in December, as has been our tradition, celebrating instead our breakfast. We will meet in January. It's the 4th Saturday in January. Paul is on, though. I know I heard his voice, see his face now. Paul, please, for our Arts and Culture Committee.
Sure, I'll make it as quick as I can, Mr. President. 4 areas to report on today. First is to let people know that I joined with you yesterday at a meeting at the Art Alliance of Sarasota that was convened by the Suncoast Black Arts Collaborative to discuss strategies on approaches to arts education in Sarasota schools. And why a scholar was invited, the intent is not just arts education, but the role of African Americans in our history in the arts, period, and integrating that into curriculum into the Sarasota schools. And they are aware that ASALH has an initiative in general for education in the Sarasota schools. So they invited us from ASALH to participate in that meeting. I don't know if David has anything to add, but that's to be continued as we move forward in that process. If you got anything to add, I'll move on.
I don't, but Paul, I'll mention Mickey and Mike Waddell, Mickey Redwine were both there and they were here today. If they want to comment on the meeting, I know Mickey was our host.
Mickey?
He's going to join us at the podium.
Oh.
Good morning. Thank you, Paul, for mentioning the meeting yesterday. The importance of collaboration with ASALH and Suncoast Black Arts Collaborative is significant as we look at art and creative opportunities for our students. We have a major initiative that we are launching to take art into the Newtown community, because as probably most of you are not aware, diversity and programs around diversity are not in the schools this year as it relates to the teaching of the arts. So I will discuss that later, probably in January, because we'll have more to report. We'd love to get more ASALH members involved in what we're doing. It's very significant. Art is our soul, in all aspects of art. So we have more to report soon.
Thank you, Mickey.
Okay.
Thank you.
Continue, Mr. President.
Yes, please, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, second thing is just to recap. Many of you know that ASALH was a participating partner in the recent Visions of the Black Experience Film Festival held at New College and online. That festival was very successful in our eyes, and it wrapped up last Saturday, and with a number of outstanding films. One in particular that we were proud to present was one on William Greaves, an early African-American filmmaker, specifically a documentary filmmaker. And that presentation I thought was outstanding. We had on the film festival selection committee of films included not only myself, but President David Wilkins, Jean and Linda Crump were key members of the film selection committee. And I see us getting even more involved in the future of this festival. Third, myself and the president again met with the Hermitage Group, Arts Group in Ingleside. And we are at this moment early discussions on a collaboration with them for presentations this February. February 23rd, 24th, looking at 4 particular artists that would be presenting, have shows in the Sarasota community, not necessarily down on the beach in Hermitage, but here in Sarasota. And we're looking at right now for to select maybe a couple, Ms. Tamara Anderson, Ms. Faye Victor, Ms. Stacy Rose, and Mr. Reggie Harris. Now, Mr. Harris just finished a show at Booker, but we're looking at him being here in February as well as a potential participant in a collaborative between Hermitage and the ASALH organization in terms of the arts. And these are all singers, storytellers, actors, and they would present their show. And last piece is, you saw Ms. Redwine, but I want to give another plug to the show art exhibition the February, Black History Month. The art exhibition is scheduled for, I don't know, David, I don't know if you saw a piece that I could share on the screen, but it was just called, it was a call to artists, and we are still looking for artists of African descent that may be interested. And the December 17th is the deadline. And there is a website Sunclose Black Arts Collaborative have a website that you can, if you're an artist or know of an artist, that you can click into and apply and submit your work. So that's by December 17th. And I thought I'd bring it up now since we would not have a meeting in December. So if you know of an artist, please let them know. This year is an exciting 3-part crosstown gallery collaboration, and we call it cross-pollination. I'm a volunteer this year. There we go. So I'm working with the SBAC as a volunteer, trying to help make this an exciting show this year. So December 17th is the deadline to submit your work and application to be a part of this exhibition. So, Mr. President, that's my report this month. So
Thank you, Paul. Thank you
All right.
very much. Any questions for Paul? Obviously, arts is vibrant and alive in Sarasota. It's a key part of our history and culture agenda at our branch. We are engaged, thanks to the work of Paul and his committee, in lots of other organizations like Suncoast Black Arts Collaborative. And I will speak for Paul. He might be feeling shy this morning, but he too needs more volunteers. And so he will be reaching out. All of our committees cannot run with 1 or 2 persons, the chair being prominent. We need more volunteers. We're fortunate to get this new slate of officers who willingly agreed to join us. But they also will be reaching out. It'll be one of our key initiatives in the next year. So you'll be getting calls, and if you like those calls to stop, when we call, simply agree to join one of these very, very important committees.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm now official, so I can formally. I'm now just voted in, so I'll call now.
And I thank you, Paul, very much. All right, so that concludes our committee reports. We're getting toward the end. We now have our good and wealth. No. Oh, Marion has an ask even before.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. We need volunteers for the breakfast for our members who are less mobile. We need someone, we need greeters and escorts to help them with their breakfast so that they can sit and enjoy, and we can go and get their breakfast and bring it back to them. If you could, you can just respond at info@alsala-minnesotaflorida.org and to let me know that you're going to volunteer for that. Or I will just grab you at the breakfast and assign you. So
Is that Minnesota, Florida, or Minnesota FL?
MinnesotaFL.org. So either way, we need you to help so that they can eat comfortably. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. I only know that FL versus Florida because she's drummed it into me. All right, so Bo, I know I saw Bo on here. Could you give us our good and welfare?
Good morning.
Morning, Bo.
Those of us who were present at the beginning of the meeting heard the president mention.
Well, can you speak up a little bit, Bo? Maybe a little closer to the
now?
computer. All right.
Can you hear me better?
No. But
Let's
proceed.
see.
Yeah, please.
What about now?
Go ahead, Bo. Yeah.
Anyway, at the beginning of the meeting, the president mentioned that we lost Vice President Gary. The committee did send the family a card of condolence, and that is the end of my report, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Bo. We will all miss Gary terribly. New business. Any old business? I have an announcement. Please, Marcia, you're muted. Please unmute yourself. You're muted, Marcia.
All right.
There you go.
I had written an announcement in a previous newsletter about a project with the Sarasota Opera. And I'm going to give an update because I'm so happy to see Ms. Lillian Granderson on this call. And she's one of the people that I have contacted for this. Recently, a few months ago, the opera staff discovered the staircase that Black people had to use when they entered the building. And they weren't aware of its usage. And therefore, they are doing a historical project to find out who used it, circumstances, and that sort of thing. And then there will be a big welcome concert in the fall. And so it will happen. And Ms. Granderson is one of the key people who will be interviewed to give information because she used that staircase. And she explained to me that she went there to see movies. So that was the use for the building that is now the Opera House. Right. And I also told David that since my specialty is music, that I am willing to work with the Arts Committee that Tolliver is doing such a terrific job with.
We've got your name, Marcia. I passed it on to Paul, and as he said, now that he's official, consider this your call, Marcia.
Right.
Thank you.
I wrote it down before she even volunteered. All right. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very good. Any other announcements? I have one short one. Let me, in addition to, and I'm glad Dr. Stewart's on the call this morning, in addition to being a living legacy awardee at the last annual meeting and convention, Dr. Stewart has been awarded the Westerfield Award by the National Economic Association 2021. And since COVID, of course, they're just now getting around to planning the celebration. Let me just read the comment from our friends at the NEA. The NEA in 2021, the NEA awarded the Samuel Z. Westerfield Award to Dr. James B. Stewart, who's past president of the NEA, professor emeritus at Pennsylvania State University, inaugural director of the Black Economic Research Center for the 21st Century, and senior fellow at the Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy at the New School. The Westerfield Award is presented periodically to a Black economist in recognition of their distinguished service, outstanding scholarship, and achievement of high standards of excellence. The award is named after its first recipient, Ambassador Westerfield, an outstanding teacher and university administrator, dedicated official in government service, a talented international diplomat, and a successful and avid builder of institutions dedicated to economic development and the appreciation of the Black experience. So, Jim, on behalf of our board, and our board has voted to sponsor your or the celebration of your award in New Orleans, I believe January 7th, and I have graciously agreed at the pressure from my board to go to that dinner in New Orleans. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, Jim, in your name. But in all seriousness, the more we learn about Jim Stewart, the more I stand amazed and awed by him. And so thank you. Congratulations, Jim. And we look forward to that celebration in New Orleans. There being no other announcements, the chair, oh, please, Marcia. Yes, our newest committee member.
Newest committee. I'm giving a very short piano recital, just as an announcement, for the Palm Air Women's Club. And just for your information, Palmer Women's Club gives scholarships to the two Manatee colleges, Florida State Teachers College, if I got the name straight, and the Manatee Technical School. And out of those scholarships, several of the recipients have been Black. And I've always enjoyed hearing them, just as I enjoy hearing our scholarship recipients describe how meaningful that money is to them. So I'm presenting a very short piano recital for them December 16th at the Palmer Country Club. I'll give information to Paul, but just letting you know.
Thank you, Marcia. Beautiful pianist, if you've not heard of her. Anything else? And for the good of the order. Seeing, hearing none.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
Paul.
I may be out of order, but it's a quick question. Our colleague Asala chapter in St. Pete, what's their status? Do you know?
St.
They
Pete-
still active?
Yes, Jackie Hubbard, sister of our own Judge Williams, is still the president.
Okay.
Yes, they are, and they're engaged with our Florida coalition.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved. Second. Thank you all. Everybody enjoy Thanksgiving with hopefully your family and lots of great food. Thanks for joining us today. We'll leave this open for a bit. You all can visit and wave at each other.
Say hello, Giddy.
The hills again.
Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Contact information.
Get it to you right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't bring a pencil.